My brother smirked the entire time the lawyer read the will, like he was watching a movie he already knew the ending to, and I sat there in the quiet conference room with my hands folded tightly in my lap, trying to focus on the words instead of the way his confidence filled the air like perfume, because grief should have been the loudest thing in that room, not arrogance, not entitlement, not the subtle satisfaction of a man who believed death was an opportunity. And the lawyer cleared his throat, papers aligned neatly, voice respectful, as per the wishes of the late Mr. Whitaker. And my brother's smirk widened as if he could taste the inheritance before it was even named, and I felt something cold settle in my stomach, because I knew that look. I had known it my whole life. The look he wore when he took the last slice of cake and told me I should have been faster. The look he wore when he borrowed money and never returned it. The look that said the world belonged to him and my place was to accept it. The lawyer continued reading, listing assets, accounts, property, and my brother leaned back comfortably, arms crossed, eyes flicking toward me with a softness that was almost mocking, and when the lawyer finally reached the line that mattered, the line that should have honored my father's intentions, my brother's voice cut in smoothly. "We can skip the formalities," he said. "We already handled most of it," and the lawyer paused, brows tightening slightly. "Handled?" He repeated, and my brother smiled. "The estate paperwork. Transfers. It's done," and for a moment the room went too still, because estates are not things you handle without everyone present, and my heart began to pound. "What do you mean it's done?" I whispered, and my brother turned to me with practiced patience. As if speaking to a child. "I mean Dad left it to me," he said simply, "and I've already moved the accounts into the family trust." The family trust. The words tasted like theft dressed as tradition. "That's not possible," I said, my voice trembling. "Dad wouldn't." My brother's smirk sharpened. "Dad would," he replied, "because Dad knew who could manage it." Manage it. The polite word for control. The lawyer's expression tightened further. Mr. Whitaker did not indicate any completed transfers prior to his passing, he said carefully, and my brother's eyes flickered with irritation. "Look," he said, "I'm trying to keep this simple, okay? We don't need drama." Drama. He had already decided that my grief would be labeled drama if it interfered with his taking. My throat went dry. "Show me the will," I demanded. My brother laughed softly. "Sure," he said, "but it won't change anything." The lawyer slid a copy across the table, and I stared at the page, my vision blurring as I scanned the lines, because there it was, in black ink, a version of my father's signature beneath an amendment I had never seen. A clause stating that the majority of the inheritance would be placed under my brother's sole authority. My hands began to shake. That's not real," I whispered. My brother leaned forward, voice almost gentle. "It's real enough," he said, "signed and notarized." Notarized. My stomach turned, because I knew my father's handwriting. I knew the way he signed his name with a slight slant, and this signature looked wrong, too stiff, too perfect, like someone copying a memory. The lawyer's eyes moved over the page, then lifted. "This amendment was filed 2 weeks ago," he said slowly. 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks before my father died. My brother's smirk returned, brighter. "Yeah," he said, "Dad was very clear at the end." Clear. My father, barely conscious, on morphine, and my brother was claiming clarity. I swallowed hard, anger beginning to push through grief. Where was I? I demanded, "Why wasn't I told?" My brother shrugged. "You were busy," he said, "and Dad didn't want to stress you." Stress me. He meant exclude me. He meant remove witnesses. The lawyer's voice grew sharper. "Mr. Whitaker," he said to my brother, "estate amendments of this nature require full capacity confirmation." My brother waved a hand dismissively. He was fine, he said. He knew what he was doing. And then he smiled at me, slow and cruel. You lost, he whispered. The words hit harder than any legal document. Because this wasn't just about money. It was about erasing me. My brother had spent his entire life competing for something invisible, attention, approval, control, and now he thought death had finally crowned him winner. I sat back, breathing slowly, forcing myself not to shatter in front of him, because he wanted the reaction. He wanted me to cry, to scream, to prove his narrative that I was unstable and emotional while he was responsible and steady. And my fingers tightened around the edge of the table as the lawyer spoke again, cautiously. There is another component to this will. My brother's smirk didn't move. Read it, he said confidently. The lawyer hesitated, then turned a page. A recorded statement was also submitted, he said. My brother's eyes narrowed slightly, the first flicker of uncertainty. A recording, he repeated. Yes, the lawyer said. And something inside me stilled, because my father had always been careful, always 2 steps ahead, and suddenly I remembered the day he told me quietly, if anything ever feels wrong, don't argue, listen for what's hidden. The lawyer looked at my brother. Mr. Whitaker requested that this audio be played in the event of dispute. My brother scoffed. Fine, he said, play it. He still smirked. He had no idea what was coming. The lawyer's finger hovered over the laptop trackpad for 1 long second, and in that pause the entire room seemed to tighten, as if even the air understood that something irreversible was about to happen. And my brother leaned back with the same careless confidence, the smirk still pinned to his face like armor, because he believed recordings were sentimental, harmless, old man nostalgia, not evidence, not a weapon, and he said lightly, Dad loved his dramatic speeches, didn't he? And I didn't respond, because my throat was too tight and my heart was beating with a strange mix of dread and hope, and then the lawyer clicked play. At first there was only static, then a soft clearing of a throat, and then my father's voice. Weak, but unmistakable. If you're hearing this, he began, then I'm gone. My brother's smirk twitched. The voice continued, steady despite illness, I'm recording this, because I've learned something late in life that I should have learned sooner. The room was silent except for the audio, and my brother's eyes narrowed, irritation flickering. My son, my father said, has always believed the world would reward him for wanting more. My brother shifted slightly in his chair. He has always been charming when watched and careless when unwatched. My breath caught. My brother's smirk faded just enough to reveal tension underneath. And my daughter, my father continued, his voice softening, has been the one who carried what was real without needing applause. My eyes burned instantly. The lawyer didn't move. The recording went on. I know how families break, my father said, and I know how greed hides inside the word responsibility. My brother's jaw tightened. So I made plans. Plans. The word landed like a key turning. My father's voice grew firmer, almost cold in its clarity. If you're listening because there is confusion over my will, then understand this. Any last-minute amendment presented without my daughter present is not mine. My brother's face snapped toward the lawyer. What? He hissed. But the recording didn't stop. I was pressured, my father admitted. In my final weeks, paperwork was brought to me when I was medicated. Signatures were suggested. Notaries were introduced. My brother went still. And I am saying now on record that I did not authorize any transfer that removes my daughter's rights. My heart slammed. The lawyer's eyes remained on the screen, calm, professional. My brother's breathing became shallow. My father's voice continued, sharper now, as if this was the real reason he recorded it. To my daughter, if you are hearing this, then your brother has tried. Tried. Not might. Has. He believes he can erase you the way he always has. But he cannot. My brother's hands clenched on the armrest. I placed an override deed in the trust office, my father said. A final instrument that only activates if fraud occurs. It freezes everything until review. My brother's eyes widened. Freeze. The same word that turns confidence into collapse. My father's voice softened again for a moment. I'm sorry I didn't defend you sooner. I saw your brother's hunger, and I called it ambition. I see now what it really was. My throat tightened painfully. Then the tone changed harder, almost like a warning carved into sound. And to my son, if you're listening. My brother's face drained of color. Then you have already crossed a line. Silence in the room felt like pressure. You may think a notarized signature is enough, my father continued, but the truth is already stored. Every document, every visitor, every request made in those final weeks has been logged. Logged. Evidence. My brother swallowed hard. And if you forge my name, my father said slowly, you will lose more than money. My brother's voice cracked. Turn it off. The lawyer didn't. The recording kept going. My estate is not a prize, my father said. It is not a trophy for the loudest child. My brother's lips trembled with rage. It belongs to the one who loved without taking. I felt a tear slip, silent. My daughter deserves peace. Peace. Not permission. Not approval. Peace. The recording ended with a soft exhale, like the final breath of a man who knew exactly what would happen after he was gone. The room sat in stunned silence. My brother didn't smirk anymore. His face was tight, pale, eyes darting like an animal caught in headlights. The lawyer finally closed the laptop gently. That, he said calmly, changes everything. My brother exploded upward from his chair. That's not, he was confused, he snapped. He was sick. The lawyer's voice turned cold. He was clear enough to record specific instructions about fraud. My brother's face twisted. This is ridiculous. No, the lawyer interrupted. What's ridiculous is that you filed an amendment 2 weeks ago without notifying the co-beneficiary. Co-beneficiary. The words hit my brother like a slap. You are not sole authority, the lawyer continued. And, because of this recording, the court will treat that amendment as contested. My brother's breath came fast. I didn't forge anything, he hissed, but his eyes were shouting something else. The lawyer's tone remained steady. Then you will have no issue with the handwriting audit. Audit. My brother's shoulders stiffened. And, the lawyer added, the trust override your father mentioned? It activated this morning. My brother froze. What? The lawyer slid a printed notice across the table. Asset hold, fraud review initiated. My brother stared at it like it was a death sentence. My stomach unclenched slightly, the first real breath I'd taken since walking into this room. You can't do this, my brother whispered, voice cracking. You did it, I said quietly. He whipped his head toward me, eyes wild. You think you've won? I tilted my head. I think Dad knew. His lips trembled. Fix it, he spat, but the demand sounded hollow now. The lawyer stood calmly. The next step is court review. Until then, nothing moves. No accounts. No property. No transfers. My brother's face fell apart. Everything he thought he owned was suddenly untouchable. His smirk had cost him everything. He turned abruptly, grabbing his jacket like escape could erase evidence, and stormed toward the door. Before he left, he looked back at me, voice low and furious. This isn't over. I met his gaze steadily. It never was, I replied. And when he slammed the door behind him, the room fell quiet again, but it wasn't the quiet of defeat anymore. It was the quiet of truth finally standing upright. My brother thought slamming the door would end the moment, like noise could rewrite reality, but the truth doesn't unplay once it's been heard, and the recording lived in the air even after he was gone, my father's voice still echoing in my chest like a hand on my shoulder. Steady, protective, and the lawyer exhaled slowly, looking at me with something close to sympathy. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "You should never have been put in this position." I nodded once, because apology was too small for what had happened. "What happens now?" I asked. His tone turned professional again, firm. "Now the court steps in. The hold remains. Your brother will be required to explain the amendment, the notarization, and the circumstances of that signature." Explain. People like my brother never explain voluntarily. They explain when forced. 3 days later, we were in court. The courtroom wasn't cinematic, it was cold and procedural, fluorescent lights, wooden benches, the quiet weight of law, and my brother sat at the defense table beside his attorney, suit immaculate, face controlled, trying to look like this was beneath him, like this was an inconvenience, not exposure. But his eyes betrayed him. They kept flicking toward me, toward the file on the judge's bench, toward the reality he couldn't charm. The judge called the case, voice neutral. Petition to validate late-stage amendment. Contest filed by co-beneficiary. Co-beneficiary. My brother hated that word. His attorney stood, attempting grace. "Your Honor, the decedent executed an amendment in sound mind. My client acted only as instructed." The judge nodded once, then looked down at the document. "And yet," the judge said slowly, "we have an audio recording indicating the decedent did not authorize such amendments under medication." My brother's jaw tightened. The judge continued, "We also have an automatic trust override triggered for fraud review." That is unusual. Unusual. A polite word for suspicious. The lawyer representing the estate stood and spoke calmly. "Your Honor, we request a handwriting analysis and notary review. The amendment was filed without notice to the co-beneficiary and contradicts prior estate structure." My brother's attorney stiffened. The judge's gaze shifted to my brother directly. "Mr. Whitaker," he said, "did you bring documents to your father in his final weeks?" My brother's voice came out smooth. "Yes, Your Honor." At his request. "Were you alone with him?" the judge asked. A pause. "Then, sometimes." The judge's eyes sharpened. "Did you ever sign on his behalf?" My brother's face tightened. "No." The single syllable hung there. The judge nodded slowly. "Then the handwriting audit will confirm that." My brother's nostrils flared. The judge turned to the notary documentation. "This notary," he said, tapping the file, "has been flagged in 2 previous contested estate cases." My brother's head snapped up. Flagged. The word was a crack in his armor. His attorney shifted uncomfortably. The judge continued, colder now, "Mr. Whitaker, who introduced this notary?" Silence. My brother's voice came out strained. "A colleague." "A colleague's name?" the judge pressed. My brother swallowed. Then he said it. And the moment he said it, his lawyer's face changed, because the name connected to someone already under investigation. The judge's expression hardened further. "We will subpoena the notary," he said. "And we will review hospital visitor logs." Visitor logs. My father's warning was becoming reality. My brother's fingers clenched. His attorney leaned close, whispering urgently, but my brother's composure was cracking. The judge looked at me then. "Ms. Whitaker," he asked gently, "were you notified of this amendment?" "No, Your Honor." "Were you present?" "No." The judge nodded once. Then he pressed play. The courtroom filled with my father's voice again, clear and undeniable, stating he did not authorize any last-minute changes without me present, stating he was pressured, stating he logged everything. The judge listened without blinking. My brother sat rigid. When the recording ended, the judge's voice was final. This court finds probable cause to treat the amendment as invalid pending investigation. My brother's breath hitched. And the judge continued, the estate will remain frozen. Additionally, the matter of potential forgery is referred to the district attorney. Referred. Not family drama anymore. Criminal territory. My brother's face drained completely. His attorney stood quickly, Your Honor. The judge raised a hand. Enough. The gavel struck once. The sound was small. The consequence was enormous. Outside the courtroom, my brother cornered me before security could step between us, his voice shaking with fury. You did this, he hissed. I looked at him steadily. No, I said softly. You did. His eyes flashed. You're going to destroy me. I tilted my head. You tried to erase me. His lips trembled. It was supposed to be simple. Simple. Always simple when you're stealing. Then his voice broke into something raw, desperate. I needed it. There it was again. Need. The excuse greed always wears. I stared at him. You needed control, I replied. He swallowed hard, eyes darting. Dad always loved you more. The resentment spilled like poison. I shook my head slowly. No, I said. Dad finally saw you clearly. That hurt him more than any accusation. Because it meant the smirk was never victory. It was exposure. Weeks later, the handwriting report came back. Not a match. The notary was subpoenaed. The amendment collapsed. The inheritance was restored according to the original will, split cleanly, protected, and my father's override clause remained the last gift he ever gave me. Proof. My brother avoided me after that, not because he felt remorse, but because he couldn't stand being seen without his illusion. And one evening, alone in my apartment, I played the recording again, not for evidence, but for closure. My father's voice, tired but steady. Peace, he had said. You deserve peace. I finally understood. The revenge wasn't taking more. It wasn't watching my brother fall. It was watching the truth stand. My brother smirked after stealing my inheritance. Until the lawyer played the recording. And in that moment, the story he thought he controlled ended.